Today, the topic is autobiography, the theme actually, under the broader rubric of disability, literature, and genre. Okay. Today, the topic is very exciting. The first part of this lecture is called Autobiography, Blindness, Lives of Intimacy, a review via the writings of Ved Mehta. So that's the topic. As you know, every literary form, autobiography, letters, and so on, reveal something unique and idiosyncratic about disability. Autobiography, well, it's a stuff about oneself and oneself's place in the world. Okay, so that's what autobiography is. As an example, I'm going to take the writings of Ved Mehta, and as you know, autobiography will, as a mode of self-expression, self-exploration, and introspection, can be about lots and lots of themes actually. This time, it is going to be about lives of intimacy. Interesting stuff. Now, who is Ved Mehta? Ved Mehta is an Indian American writer. He left India in late 1940s and ever since remained there. He has written 11 autobiographical volumes, fondly nicknamed by the author as Continents of Exile. Please note the word exile. And he has written at least 13 other books that crisscross across fields like philosophy, history, politics, film, and much more. Okay, so we are talking about a dynamic writer, and for our purpose, he is blind. He lost his sight due to meningitis before the age of 4. They were originally from before the partition. They were his family hailed from Pakistan. After the partition, they were one of those who fled to India, the Indian side of Punjab, and he did his schooling in Dadar School for the Blind, for primary school in Bombay, which is one of the early schools for the blind in India. And then he went to America for good, where he joined Arkansas School for the Blind, and then did his higher degrees in Oxford, Pomona, Harvard, and then he became a staff writer for the New Yorker, and so on. So that's a quick intro, or CV, if you like. And now, let's get into work. Continents of Exile, what is it? Continents in Mehta's oeuvre is a very dynamic term. It doesn't just reflect the dictionary sense of the word continent, a huge landmass, and so on. It is much more idiosyncratic. For example, what are the continents of exile that inform his autobiography? Well, roughly 6 in number: India, Britain, America, psychoanalysis. See, look at this. Psychoanalysis is conceived of as a huge system, a continent. Culture of the blind and the New Yorker. So these are the 6 continents that we are talking about. But And they, each of them give him, in some sense, a sense of exile. Exile is, there are many meanings to the word exile. You may consult Edward Said, who gave fantastic purview of exile. One kind of exile is forceful banishment. You see, lots of people lose their livelihood, lands, houses, because of deforestation, maybe building dams. So some people are evicted forcefully, banishment. The second kind of exile is voluntary. You see, for example, you may withdraw from active evening extravaganza just to get to write your term paper or exam. You need to withdraw to do some writing. So it's kind of voluntary exile from active evening life, say Friday, Saturday evening extravaganza, right? And there is a third kind of exile, which is, you kind of remove yourself from yourself and withdraw a little bit and look at your own self. Okay, so that's Continents of Exile, Ved Mehta's huge oeuvre, compendium of autobiography, talking about different things like psychoanalysis, blind culture, America, and so on. But today, because I took autobiography and disability as a theme today, why autobiography? Because autobiography can reveal certain things which other literary forms, say for example fiction, cannot. And autobiography can also bring a notion of authenticity about one's self-expression. So that's why the Black Pride movement, gender activism, disability activism, LGBT activism, they hugely draw on life writings in general and autobiography in particular. This does not mean autobiography is more factual than others. Instead, it is more authentic literary form than the others, actually. So in that sense, when you talk about intimacy, that's the best form to seek recourse to, actually. Right. So having said that, why intimacy? Well, intimacy is private. And because it is private, it is pushed to the margin. Everyone is interested in social contracts, public life, public performance, performativity, interpersonal relationships that look conspicuous and measurable. However, the realm of intimacy is as important as other relationships because it shapes people. Intimacy shapes who I am. And intimacy also informs the stuff of our cognitive orientation, emotional orientation, and behavioral orientation. Which part of Continents of Exile is more about intimacy? Yeah, you guessed it right. It should be Continent of Psychoanalysis because psychoanalysis is the stuff about our emotion, sentiments, thought process, reflective processes, and attachments, and love, sex, relationships, friendships, and secrets. Okay? As a system of thought, it is not much old, maybe 100 years. You can consider Freud's interpretation of dreams, published in 1900, as the landmark movement and the beginning of psychoanalysis. And as a system of thinking about private lives of people, it began spreading across very widely. Now it's almost there everywhere in the world, but it is more famous, more popular in America, Europe, Latin America, and so on. Okay? Why? Because of historical reasons. The way psychoanalysis spread in these parts of the world, growing consumerism, individual lifestyles, and so on. Okay, Mehta underwent deep psychoanalysis in late 1960s and 70s to make sense of his failures in getting the better half of his choice. He wants to make sense of his failures in getting love life right. After repeatedly failing in love life for at least 4 times, Mehta ends up in a psychoanalytic couch, a system where it's a classical Freudian system where you lie down on a couch and your analyst sits at your back, and you, since the room is cut off from the rest of the world, it's quite, it induces, in fact, Mehta calls his analyst room, Mr. Robert Bach, B.A.K., a Hungarian psychoanalyst settled in America. He calls his analyst room a telephone booth without a telephone. Telephone booth conjures up old kinds of telephony before the arrival of mobile phone. Okay, right. So he sits there in a semi-sleepy, semi-drowsy, semi-dreamy, reverie-like situation and keeps talking. An analyst slowly prompts him from behind. Why do analysts sit in the back? Behind, because eye-to-eye contact between the analyst and the analysant can provoke resistance on the part of the analysant, and therefore classical Freudian system believed that one should be away from eyesight, invoking images of blindness and careful hearing. Okay, so he went there, and the way Freudianism prompted him, it in fact introduced a special kind of nerve into his writing, the way he thought about himself, his family in India, especially his mom, and so on. Look at the following example. In one of the therapeutic sessions, classical Freudian sessions with Robert Bach, Mehta remembers the time, early childhood, maybe before 4, when he had some sight, and that moment when he could see his mamaji, that is mom, naked as she was taking a bath. Mehta confesses to Bach that that sight continues to torture him, and that with guilt, and that guilt continues to influence his love life. Well, the scene, the nakedness of parents or parents' own sexual life when children are exposed to it, Freud calls that primal scene. And the guilt connected with naked Mamaji and the way it pursues him is pretty much symbolic of the idea of Oedipus complex. Oedipus complex is based on the ancient Greek myth where the son Oedipus kills his own father so as to marry his own wife. His own mom, makes his mom his wife. Well, Freud sort of universalized the story to arrive at Oedipus complex. Is Oedipus complex nonsense because it is universalized? Yes and no. Yes, because you universalize a particular ethos, stories emerging from a particular ethos, and it is from an aggressive male point of view. No, because there is a general. If you put it like this, if I put it like this, you may all agree. Girl children have more affinity with the dad, and boys have more affinity with mom, and there is general affection crosses gender that way, so as to support security, familial life, and so on. If I put it that way, it doesn't sound that crude and disgusting in the way one would put bluntly the story of Oedipus complex. Okay, now having recalled that story, the naked guilt complex associated with it, Mehta unlocks a whole continent hidden in his head and mind and body, that about the life of intimacy, which is the stuff that we are concerned about. So this is the most interesting aspect of studying autobiography, to reveal the hidden crevices of any identity or identity performance, actually. In this case, Mehta's relationship with his childhood mom, it seems, plays a crucial role in his future relationships, and not the guilt complex alone. It could be pattern of relationship, the pattern of caregiving which he acquired during his childhood, the expectations of security feeling, the expectations, desires, the nature of bonding that happens with his girlfriends and so on, that becomes in some sense reflective of his relationship with mom. Look at this situation. This guy settles in America, and the trials and tribulations that come with desires, romantic affairs, fantasies, disappointments, aspirations that happen in America, in some sense, to make sense of it, he goes back to his memory of his childhood. In that sense, in psychoanalytic system, whether it involves lives of intimacy and otherwise, it looks like one's childhood becomes very crucial. That's, I think, is the nature of, at least that is the nature of continent of psychoanalysis. We come to be exposed in the writings of Ved Mehta. How does that get revealed? Well, long memoirs. He published, Mehta published a memoir, All for Love, early 2000, I think it's 2001. It is a very nice book with 4 stories, each about each love affair in candid details, of course from Mehta's perspective. Okay, and he has written it with an explicit permission from people whom he was involved with. Okay, his women in love. And the last chapter is about 6-7 years of psychoanalysis, sitting in a couch, and what happened there, and this psychoanalytic encounters, enduring influence on his approach to writing based on reflection, writing based on his understandings of attachment, and so on. Okay, so that's the stuff that we are talking about. And how does psychoanalytic sessions do that? For that, we need to understand the concept of transference and countertransference. These are the 2 concepts that involve the stuff of psychoanalysis, and it's the stories that it says about the world. Transference. Basically, Freud says, you go for psychoanalysis, yes. Why does psychoanalytic listening differ from other kinds of listening? Freud's answer is, well, in a psychoanalytic listening, the analyst makes himself or herself available like a mirror. What does a mirror do? It reflects back whether you have combed your hair, your makeup, your dress, your smile. Suppose you go with some tears. It reveals exactly what you are, at least at the realms of appearance. If you're tearful, the mirror shows you to be tearful. If you're smiling and happy and jubilant, the mirror shows you as much, shows back as much. A psychoanalyst is trained to be like a mirror. Suppose you go with go to your friend and relay some disappointments in life about something, say a break in relationship. The other person may begin actually talking about himself or herself, which is very annoying. Instead of listening to you about your trials and tribulations, they begin about their own story and then, give you a sort of advice. Well, you end up getting more disappointed than before after that encounter. Here, in the psychoanalytic mirroring process, which is called transference, basically you project as a patient, you project all your fantasies, desires, disappointments, happiness, anxieties, fears, come what may, on the analyst, who is now a mirror who will reflect back what you bring to the psychoanalytic session. This is called transference. However, the analysts are not non-human. They are human. Sometimes they can exactly do what your proverbial friend did. I was talking about a minute ago. Basically talk about himself. So bringing one's own material back, reflecting back without mirroring is called countertransference. One can reveal one's own. So what I have done now is how exactly Ved Mehta's autobiography talk about or go to talk about intimacy through psychoanalytic lens. Okay? And it is not a requirement all autobiography follow that trajectory. People can write autobiography without knowing anything about psychoanalysis. Since this is the gestalt that we are approaching, I gave you a broad survey. Now, in part 2 of this lecture, we'll talk about blindness and intimacy and attachment. Okay, thank you.